David Olimpio. I am a writer and photographer and magazine editor, publisher. And I live in Philadelphia, PA currently. Well, it's not been great for sure. I was kind of going through a big life transition before the pandemic. My wife and I, we'd been married about 20 years. And so we got separated, I moved to Philly and about a year before the pandemic. So I kind of moved to this city where I'd never really lived before and looking to be getting more involved in the city and going to readings and stuff here. And I did, do some of that for a while, but things just took a drastic turn with pandemic, and then all the advantages to being in a city suddenly became disadvantages. And it was already like kind of a difficult year just getting acquainted with living by myself again. I think at first it was almost sort of, there was a sort of simplicity about it, which was being like a child of the 80s. And I was like a latchkey kid, and I'm pretty good at being alone. So like it didn't bother me so much at first, but now it's gotten increasingly hard to sort of be so isolated. And I do go outside a lot because I have two dogs. That's nice. I had to take them for a walk at least 3 times a day. There's a lot of like cool hiking spots and outdoor spots in Philadelphia. I've been doing some of that, but probably not as much as I should be or, could be. It's weird. It's just an adjustment of lifestyle. Like I used to live in the city. I used to live in Washington, D.C., and actually I lived in Baltimore for a while. But for the last 10 years, really more like 12, I was living in suburban New Jersey, just outside of New York. And I had a house, had a big backyard on a very quiet street. It was a very different life than what I'm living now. And I used to do a lot more outdoors with the dogs, and I maintenance and gardening and stuff like that. The white one behind me is Kaya. She's 5, actually. She still acts like a puppy. Rothko, my other dog, is at my feet right now. Feet is about 10. A pretty active boy, but he's got more gray in his face, sort of like me. I love having dogs. I've had dogs since 2008 now, but it definitely traps you in a way, like having kids. You can't just go somewhere. You have to think about what you're going to do with them. And especially with Kaya, the pit bull, she can be really aggressive towards other dogs. And she's a great dog. She's a super good dog. Like when it's just me and her and my other dog, and she's very lovable to humans, but she's just very aggressive with other dogs. And it's not easy to just bring her somewhere. Some of my parent friends tell me you have one kid and you think you know how to be a parent, and then you have another kid and they changes everything. It's like you have a certain type of child doesn't mean that the next child's going to be like that. My creative work before I moved really revolved around my dogs. A long time ago, when I first moved to New Jersey, I started taking photos of my first dog, Honey, and writing little captions with them every day. And then I got Rothko and my other dog and developed his own personality in my photos. And the captions became more like an ongoing narrative of their life, but reflecting on me. And then those turned into less just captions and more like self-contained poems. So I kind of wound up terming them photo poems because I take the photo and then write a poem. They were mostly of my dogs, but they're really about me. My dogs became my life, but at the same time, I was able to access a creativity through them. Having them, definitely gives me a lot of companionship. But basically, I have not been feeling very creative at all. And I mean, that was sort of happening already before the pandemic. There's just because of everything going on in my life and the changes and stuff. I think I'm the type of creative person that needs a kind of stability in order to do things. And I am not feeling a tremendous amount of stability. So I've been sort of consumed with just feeling in survival mode, I think. I used to be somebody that probably would have gone out and documented and done a lot during a time like this. I know that that's how I used to be, and I have no interest in doing that whatsoever. But what I've been focusing on is my finances. Been taking a lot of courses. He's like a coach and he makes things fun, but he also somehow comforts you. He makes ideas and tools. That's been my biggest comfort, I'd say, is taking his course. It's a good time to sort of be a student. I have a friend locally that I mainly hang out with, and it's just weird trying to establish grounding in Philly now. I've sort of gotten involved actually in a First Unitarian church nearby. I had gone to a couple services like right before the pandemic, and that's been really good, sort of given me people to interact with. I'm part of the band actually. I play keyboards, so I we've been doing an online. One of the things I do for several of the songs is not even play on them, but I just engineer them using GarageBand and stuff, and that's always been something that's interested me, but I hadn't ever known that much about it. So this has been a good period where I've kind of learned that new skill. I guess the main creative work I do is around the magazine I run, Atticus Review, and I'm even seeing that in a different way, and I'm probably going to be making some changes to that coming months. That's been my primary sort of creative outlet, if you will. I mean, I'm just trying to reconfigure how that works. But it's just everything's strange. It's like not meeting anybody face to face, contact with them in reality, except over a screen like this. You know, you begin to start wondering, is everything just a fabrication of my mind? Everybody that I talk to is just a projection of my imagination, especially with the people that I haven't met in real life. But I've had these interactions with them over Zoom, and that's pretty much my only experience with them. So it's kind of weird. It's all like the Matrix, and I'm just like talking to myself in my apartment. I mean, one positive thing that's definitely come out of the pandemic for me is a greater comfort level with what we're doing now, meeting with people on Zoom and stuff. My dad has also gotten a lot more comfortable doing the Zoom stuff. So that's been cool because he lives in Texas as well. And I've communicated with him a few times over. I found that that's been really good and helpful. And we're definitely going to keep doing that. I think that there's ways that the pandemic is certainly going to be increasing people's comfort levels with certain these technologies and everything. I think it's definitely going to change the way we do business and interact, and that definitely has some positive ramifications. I think it's been helpful to reinvigorate speaking out loud about some of this stuff. I mean, if you can't speak, you don't think, you know. I think that there's a truth to that somehow.